weird situations where you're sharing the screen and suddenly you can't turn your camera on and I don't know what causes what.
Yeah, technology, gotta love it.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, great.
I can.
I finally got the voice things taken care of. Thank you.
Excellent. It's nice to hear you, right?
Madam Chair, it looks like we have quorum and our first applicant. If you want to call the meeting to order and proceed.
Excellent. Thank you. We'd like to call the February 23rd, 2023 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio Open Meeting Law and Section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rule of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that everyone keeps their microphones on mute. We then ask that you use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raised hand icon again and muting your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located at the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter via our website and email have been considered. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Mr. Musson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to go over the virtual meeting rules and procedures, the chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize Design Review Committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comments is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to the commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after the agenda item has been called.
I'd like to call the February 23rd, 2023 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Musson, please call the roll.
Ms. Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Benezzi, Mr. Colicchia,
Here.
Mr. Dreyer,
Here.
Mr. Edmond,
Here.
Councilmember Gray, Director Wong, Mr. Strickland, Mr. Trasick,
Here.
and Ms. Trott.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have quorum. In addition to the commission members, we have Kevin Roberts, our representative from the Law Department, as well as Jessica Beam, Carl Brunges, and myself from the Landmarks office.
Excellent. Then we will begin with our certificates of appropriateness today. We'd like to, a little housekeeping, just a reminder that Mr. Musson does control the slides. Please let him know when you would like to advance. We'd like to welcome our first applicant. Please unmute your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project. The first applicant is the Kotecki Family Memorials located at 3636 West 25th Street. New signage.
There we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Bryson. My coworker, Laura, was unable to attend today, but I am the account executive that is working on this project. So I'm here in place of her today to discuss the signage. So as we see in this slideshow here, we are looking to put 2 signs on this existing building on the eastern face of the building facing the cemetery, Riverside Cemetery across the street for brand awareness and attention for Kentucky Family Memorials and what their business entails for that cemetery across the street. In this slide, there are 2 existing signs here, one being a ground sign and one being a flat flush aluminum wall sign. On this side of the building is another existing sign, which is flat dimensional copy reading Kotechi, so that anyone driving on this street can see the branding going either direction on this street. Now, what we are looking to propose is on this eastern facing part of the building, there are 2 sections on the facade, which is a sign band. We'd be looking to put 2 signs, one in the middle section of each sign band, flat aluminum panels in those rectangular sign bands you can see there. Now, here's a copy of the drawing that we have proposed. So they are 2 signs, as I mentioned before, one on each section of the sign band. The one on the left reading Kotechi, the one on the right reading Monuments. They would be flat aluminum panels. If I recall, they are 80 gauge aluminum, so it is a heavy duty aluminum that would be painted white with die cut blue vinyl applied to the first surface of the aluminum panels. And we would then fasten the signs to the buildings with visible face fasteners into the mortar joints. I think that's about all I have here for the signage. Certainly, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. We'll begin with our staff report then.
Madam Chair, so this project requires a 110.5 square foot variance to move forward. Staff does not find the materials appropriate and does not support the variance needed. The wall sign on the south of the building was installed without review or permit, and staff would recommend replacing that southern sign with a more appropriate, maybe internally illuminated sign. Recommend an evaluation of the facade for potential repairs and stabilization. It looked like there were some masonry things going on. So we recommend denial of the current proposal as presented. I think there are some signage opportunities on this building, just not exactly what's being presented.
Okay, thank you for that summary. Feedback from the local design review committee.
Madam Chair, we didn't have a quorum, so there was no input from local on this one.
Okay, thank you for that reminder. All right, then we will open the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Edmond, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. To the applicant, the signage that you have on the north facade of the building is just individual letters, which I think would probably be a lot more fitting and just look more handsome on your building. Did you consider that, or why not do that?
Of course. So that's actually what was originally proposed to our customer, was doing individual letters, something similar to what you see existing on the north side of the building. Only difference was it was going to be a slightly thicker material, an exterior grade PVC that's designed to be out in these elements. But when it came down to the general aesthetic, and I think it might have came down to some pricing factors as well, the current proposal that we have was a little bit more suited towards the customer's overall interests.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edmond. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was looking over these drawings yesterday, and I came to the same conclusion as Mr. Edmonds. I think this is such a elegant little building, and I think the single letter signs would continue to convey that elegance, where the white panel with the blue letters it just loses that delicacy. So I realize that the individual letters are probably more expensive, but I think it would really overall enhance the appearance of the property, and I think it'd still be very noticeable and, you know, just a much more pleasant look. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Giancarlo?
The current signs, like the Kotaki Family Memorials, has been there for a long time. So has the Kotaki on the north side of the building, right? I worked in that building 20, 30 some years ago. So what we're seeing right now, for example, on the screen is currently there, right?
That is correct. Yes.
And then on the street side of the street, there's also Kotaki in blue lettering. Or is that on the north? Is it this one here? That's also there.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, so that's been there for probably 45, 50 years, right? Why do we need a new sign? I mean, what's the purpose of this new signage?
Sure. So unfortunately, the owner was unable to be present in our meeting today, but having multiple conversations with Mr. Kotaki III, his reasoning for wanting to put the signage on the east face side of the building was to have that awareness to the cemetery, Riverside Cemetery across the street. So the current signage in place certainly captures the attention of the traffic that is driving, since it is north and south and the street runs north and south there. So he was looking to have some signage on the eastern facing building so anyone who is walking in the cemetery could see the visibility of Kotaki and what they have to offer.
Okay, Mr. Mawson said that the current signage actually has no permits to be there. Is that correct also? Is there a listing permit for the?
That we actually didn't fabricate those signs, so that I am not personally aware of. The only signage I'm currently aware of and any proposals we have would be for the one that we are discussing today.
Okay, well, it's a very elegant building, and I'm just curious. I mean, it's been there for so many years. I think it's still the biggest monument maker in Cleveland. So I'm not sure if there's a reason or a purpose for additional signage. Those are my comments for the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Colicchio. I would agree. And looking on Google Earth, it's been there since at least 2011. The signs on the south side of the building. I think I agree with everything that is said. Is that I think it's a very elegant building, and if signage is required and would meet the square footage requirements or be acceptable from square footage requirements. I would only support it if it was done in a similar manner of the signage that's on the north side, not a standalone material with the that's applied, a metal panel that's applied to the building in the fashion that it is right now. So those are my comments. Other questions or comments from the commission? I think at this point, based on what you're hearing, I would either ask for a motion from the commission. I think there's two options, obviously, to go. The first would be to table to allow revisions to the proposal addressing the comments, or a motion to either approve or disapprove the proposal. Giancarlo, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I would propose to table it because I'm not quite sure really what is to table it for now and review it again, but I'm not sure. I actually would move to reject that proposal as presented. That would be my proposal.
So is that an official motion?
Yes.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Ms. Anderson?
You know, I would suggest that we table this, and they could come back with a proposal.
Point of order, there's a motion on the table, and unless
Oh,
we have,
Okay, all right. Well, in that case, I'll probably second it. You know, because we really can't, we're too far away from an agreement on what's being proposed.
So that's an official second, Ms. Anderson? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Edmond?
Just a question. So if we reject this submission, they can come back with a different design or different approach. And what would be the advantage of rejecting versus tabling?
Mr. Burgess, do you want to explain that, or Mr. Musson? Make sure I'm not overstating.
I think staff would also favor rejecting it because is there any case that this is an appropriate treatment of this building for this paneling and to this? So if it's not, then this solution gets rejected in total and they would have to come back with a separate, more appropriate solution to the building. Hope that helps.
I think for me, the point being that the building has been, this signage has been there for a long time. I don't think it's impeded the business or the recognition of the structure. And I'm not sure what the reason is for the new sign or the purpose of it. That's actually my point, really.
I think we could also, having gone out there, the signage is not really visible from north and south. Plus the north and south signage gives the identification to anybody going into Riverside Cemetery. So it's visible already. Honestly, I think this entire storefront could use a refresh, which would be even better, and potentially working with the storefront renovation program to do something holistically to the building would be a better idea. That's just thrown out there for
I
consideration.
personally, yeah, I totally agree with that suggestion. I think the building is exactly the same as it has been for 40 years, to my memory. So it could use some uplifting, historical uplifting. I'm not sure the signature or signage is of any help.
So, to be clear to the applicant, I think we've given you a little bit of mixed messages, but I think in general, the reason why it is being proposed the way it is with the motion is that the current proposal is not appropriate, but signage could be appropriate on this space, either apply to the building or apply to something like canopies. But we'd require or request you to look at the project as in its entirety, since there are parts and pieces that do not currently abide by the code, and really precludes you from getting approved for additional signage within the building. So I just want to make sure that we're clear there to the applicant. So I think a new proposal would need to take all of those things into account. Any additional comments that need to be discussed before we take a vote? Or any additional questions or comments? As Mr. Colicchio? No? Okay.
No, I'm trying to erase my hand, but it's not working.
It's up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Did you have a question or
No,
just
no,
to get it down? Okay.
Thank you.
Then I will ask Mr. Musson to call roll and announce the results.
All right, on the motion to deny, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchio,
Yes,
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmond,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. To the applicant, as we mentioned, I think we would want to see if you come back with a new proposal, which we totally encourage you to do. Look at the project property in its totality and you really address some of the issues that are there with the signage before you propose additional signage on this space.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for all the recommendations and your notes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our next applicant, the Brooklynder Cove Apartments located at 3103 Dennison Avenue. New signage.
Good morning, everyone. Mike Bizjack with Sesco Imaging, here on behalf of the owners and the property management company, Allied Property Management. This property is one of three in the area, the only one that's in this historic district, which is currently undertaking an upgrade on various things, including branding and signage with the new ownership. What we're proposing at this building is a small blade sign, 12 square foot blade sign, that would project approximately 1.5 foot from the building face. The sign is a metal, internally illuminated cabinet. The wording would be dimensional plastic letters that will have an edge glow to them. The address would also light up. And then if you could flip to the next slide, you see it on the building. The sign would be positioned at the east end of the building along Dennison, closest to the side street, West 31st Street, where the actual entrance to the parking area is. There is a second sign that we were proposing. It's a small info sign. We like to, because there are three properties and not all of them have their own leasing and management office. This provides information, and we also have limited parking, basically the amount of spots for the amount of apartments in the building. We like to include some information about where the leasing and management office is, and where the in regulations with regards to the parking on the site. They do try to maintain those spots for residents and an occasional guest or so. That sign would be located along the side street at the vehicular entrance to the property. I would like to point out there are no back entrances to the building. All the entrances are at the front of the building. So the sign being where it is important because most people are going to get out of their car and walk in, but we want to walk around the building rather than having a sign like this at a building entranceway. We want them to see it as they're entering the property, or before they enter the property. Sign is would be set in a landscaped area outside of the setback requirements and visibility triangle setback requirements. It would actually be parallel to the road, so you see it as you're pulling in. If you flip to the last page, it'll show the overhead of this. One sign being at the northeast corner, and the info sign along 31st Street. The info sign is non-illuminated, metal fabricated. Both have kind of a matching color scheme, style, and dimensional trim band. I guess at this point, I'd like to answer any questions or take any comments that you have.
All right, thank you for the presentation. We'll begin with staff report or local design review committee staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This also did not have a quorum, so there is no report from the local design review committee. Projecting signs are not permitted in a residential district. Identification signs are permitted to be wall, freestanding, or canopy. This 11.87 square foot projecting wall sign for a residential building requires a variance as such. The freestanding information sign is permitted to be 4 square feet with a maximum of 3 feet in height for multifamily apartments. The applicant is proposing an 8.06 square foot freestanding information sign. The informational aspect on the sign is 6.39 square feet, while the identification portion of the top 10 inches is considered 1.67 square feet. This still exceeds the 4 square feet allotted. Staff recommends denial as presented with a recommendation for either wall signs on the sides of the building or a monument sign at the front of the property. Thank you.
Thank you for the summary in that report. We'll then transition to opening the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off? Mr. Edmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Carl, for that compliance information. I think at a bottom line, they need to present something that's in compliance or closer to it. I do have a couple other just comments on the design as they refine it. More pragmatic, I guess, than anything. I think the color and the general composition is nice and fresh, and I think complements the color of the building. But just pragmatically, that script, the Brooklyner script, is kind of hard to read, particularly when it's oriented vertically. It's quite difficult to read. I had to look at it a few times the first time I saw it. And the other thing, and again, this will be a consideration in the redesign, is when I looked at this presentation the first time earlier this week, I read that as that it looks like the leasing and management office is there. I think the way that monument sign is designed, it's confusing. And if I were driving by, I would think, oh, here's the leasing and management office, as opposed to directing me somewhere else. But so I think that's just another practical thing that should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edmond. Other questions or comments? Ms. Anderson?
Yes, I'm sorry I was not able to hear a lot of what Mr. Edmond had to say because his audio was breaking up, but I suspect we're in agreement. The script on that lettering is, I think, just going to be hard to read, and it's a little bit busy. It's also, this is a mid-century building, and I would think there'd be a font that would complement the building and be easier to read. That said, this might be better, like there's overhangs on the doorway, maybe written on the overhang, as opposed to this sign, which doesn't meet the city codes. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Based on the configuration of the building and the style, I do not support the variance for blade sign in this location, since there are two fairly visible walls that could be used, for signage and not require a variance. Related to the ground-mounted sign, I do understand the need, for signage there, but do not feel that the size is required based on how close you would have to be to that sign, to be able to read all that, information on the sign. I would also just agree with Mr. Edmonds' comments that I think the predominance of the text on and configuration of the text related to the information you're trying to convey on the sign, the ground-mounted sign near the parking, is confusing because you have the leasing and management text more dominant, larger than the information that your parking is really only for residents. And so that would just be more of a logistical feedback on that sign. So I would not support the blade sign, but I could support the ground-mounted sign if it was reduced to meet the signage requirements.
May I comment?
Yes.
May I respond? Okay, so the one of the key things with the information sign is it is intended to be a secondary thing, and it's not meant for people driving by to read. It does if the size of the leasing and management text is a concern, we can certainly reduce it. But it does clearly state where the management office is, how to contact them, and even I believe what the hours are. For some reason, I I'm not seeing, I thought I pulled a drawing of it and now I'm not seeing it. But in any case, yes. Yes, it includes some information. With regards to the size, if we make any of this information any smaller, that's what would be required, or we'd have to have multiple signs. That was our intention with the sign was to condense it into one rather than having several signs stacked next to each other. We didn't think that was a better solution. We thought condensing it down, making it maybe a little bit bigger. Just affirmation of the identity of the property at the top in a very minimal fashion. And then this key information about where the leasing and management office is. I don't think if anyone actually read it that they would be confused if they're coming in there that the leasing and management office is at 2303 Forestdale, 2303 Forestdale Avenue, and how to reach those people at that location. With regards to the font, I do hear what you're saying. The font that they've selected is actually used at all three properties. It's kind of a co-branded thing. And the last name, the Cove name, the other one is a point, and then there's a bay. So there's Brookliner Point, Cove, and Bay. This is all a co-branded set of properties in this area. So that is why that font looks the way it does. They thought that this is the branding that was provided to me from their marketing company. So we just utilized it and implemented it as best as possible into this property. So that's with regards to the information sign. On the blade sign, if you could flip back to the front elevation photo. Due to the shallow setback of the building, while it has a shallow setback, there doesn't seem to be a great location for a flat wall sign that's going to give the identity near the corner, which gets you to the parking area. We did not want to place anything on the face of the canopies because they have kind of a dimensional metal aspect to them. And I think covering that up would actually meet with the guidelines that the Landmarks usually adheres to. The Landmarks Commission usually adheres to. It's one of the few kind of architectural features of the building is at the entryways. I don't know if any of the photos showed that specifically. There's kind of a diamond pattern on the face of it. I don't know if that can be zoomed in or if it's actually that visible. You can almost see it in that last one. Flip back one, please. You can see it with the reflection. You can see the diamond pattern across the face of the canopy. I don't know if you noticed that or not. Being that it is a fairly simple mid-century modern building with not that many architectural features except the entranceway, and I think it was a good idea to put something over the top of that. A flat wall sign, due to the shallow setback, flat wall sign becomes very difficult to see until you're right on top of it. And so a sign facing traffic we thought worked a lot better. And that was the point of doing a blade sign. Without a monument sign, due to the mature landscaping, it's nicely trimmed. Usually this photo isn't the best because it's all covered in snow. I think you can see if you go back to the sign drawing photo rendering, you'll see that they have fairly nicely trimmed but mature landscaping that takes up a good part of the front yard, which is another reason why we didn't want to go with a monument sign. The sign itself does meet all the sizing requirements. It's just the type of sign. I mean, we're well within, I think we're at 60% of what we're allowed to have as an ID sign. And staff can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I believe 20 square foot is what we're allowed. We're not asking for that much. We thought a blade sign would work well here. Blade signs have been used on other residential structures in landmark districts, in historic districts, in many areas of Cleveland. So I don't feel it's precedent setting to have one in this location. But again, that was our thoughts on it and how we arrived at what we arrived at. So just wanted to further expand on some of the comments and concerns I'm hearing about the design and why we chose what we chose.
Thank you for that clarification. That's helpful to understand your approach to this. Other questions and comments from the commission? Would someone like to put forward a motion? Would someone like to put forward a motion? We do need to, Mr. Edmond.
I'd like to move that the application be denied and that the applicant come back with a compliant design.
Right, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I
Miss-
second that.
All right, thank you. We have a second. Further discussion by the commission. Right. Right now, we're in the middle of a motion and taking the roll for this, so I cannot take comments from other people at this time. So Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
Right, Madam Chair, and just to be clear, there's a motion on the table to deny the applicant to return with a compliant design, meaning one that does not involve, that meets city code, so it wouldn't be projecting, if that the intent,
Mr. Edmond, do you want to
or just
clarify? Your
denial
motion?
as presented?
I guess we should just deny it as presented and a recommendation that they come back with a compliant design.
Okay. All right, so the motion to deny is presented. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Kalikia,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmond,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
And as was mentioned to the applicant, I think we're in support of signage for this facility, but we would recommend that you bring back a solution that is compliant with the requirements for this area. And I think we did articulate the denial. Right, then we will move on to our next applicant, located at 740 West Superior Avenue, new mural proposal.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Whalen. I have Michael Whalen here with me, and Michael Carney, the building owner, is on board as well. We're proposing a wall mural at 740 Superior Street. We feel that it falls under the wall mural code as being unsightly. We don't think we're covering up any historic architecture. We are proposing see-through mesh, which I've provided you guys samples of. You can see out of the mesh and you could get sunlight in through the mesh. That means the windows will still function. And we provided you guys with the existing wall murals around town, if you can show those slides. You guys have those? Yeah, that's our proposal for 740 Superior. Then if we can go through the existing murals, not that. That's, no, that's
No,
how we're going to install it.
We sent over pictures of all the current signage up in Cleveland.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay.
We're just going through it in order that it was sent.
If you need me to explain any of those, I can, but. Yep, there we go. That's one over on Carnegie, and that has a permit. That's one of the 6 existing. That's, what is that, West Third? Okay, there you go. Those are the existing murals, just so you guys can get a feel about what's about around town. That one there is covering up windows. Yep, that's it. Okay.
Could you go back and explain your proposal for installation of the sign?
As far as that's
Your-
what we're proposing, a 50 by 50 sign right there.
And what is your type of material that you're proposing? How will you install it to the building, and what is your setback from the front face and the top parapet?
There's 6 inches all the way around the perimeter. It's see-through vinyl mesh. I provided samples of it. You don't have them?
You're talking to the entire commission right now, so we are not, since we're all virtual, verbally explaining it would be very helpful.
Well, I have engineered specs if you go back, as far as that's how we're going to install it. And like I said, there's a 6-inch perimeter per code all the way around the wall. The setback from the curb, I'm not sure of that measurement. And we have the dimensions of the wall and from the grade to the bottom of the sign. Right there. And we'll have 2 LED lights shining up on it.
Thank you for that additional information. We'll then move on to feedback from the local design review committee.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The local committee recommended denial. Local felt that the proposal does not enhance the space and the wall is not unsightly. Windows will be covered as presented and the wall is not blank. The committee discussed unsightliness or non-unsightliness of the proposed wall and alternatives. A variance would be needed as the proposal is not 80% of the wall as required. The subject matter of the proposal is not under purview. That's why we're kind of looking at a blank box. The proposal is essentially to be on a list for future installation. There's no installation due at this time due to the existing wall murals in place throughout the city. We actually have, I guess, when it comes to staff report, we have Shannon Lennon, who's one of our signage and zoning experts, so she may be able to explain a bit in more detail, I guess, some of the issues surrounding this.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Planner, City Planning Commission. So this is one that we do not see often, simply because there are already 6 existing wall murals displayed throughout the downtown central business district. Essentially, it's been held up in court that if an application comes in for a wall mural, we will adjudicate it based on the wall mural section of our zoning code. And then if it comes in as a billboard, then we would adjudicate it as a billboard. Essentially, wall murals are an off-premise sign. They have a lot of requirements around them, but at the end of the day, the application as it relates can be a hypothetical application. The purview of your commission is not to discuss content. It is simply to determine whether this location is for an unsightly wall. And so to determine whether a wall is eligible for a wall mural, the proposed location of the wall mural shall be an exterior building wall that qualifies as unsightly. A wall shall be deemed unsightly if its facade is a generally flat surface, lacking distinctive external architectural ornamentation, is constructed of poor quality, or is inappropriate construction materials, or in disrepair. Also, no interference with distinctive architectural or historical features. So that's placement of the wall mural at the proposed location shall not be clearly incongruous with or obscure or compromise the design integrity of distinctive architectural or historical features of the building and of the architectural or scenic character of surrounding properties within 250 feet from the wall. And so those are the parameters around whether you must determine if it's an unsightly wall. The other thing to note, as Dan had stated, the wall mural is required to be 80%. Again, the whole entire purpose of the wall mural section is really to allow this type of off-premise signage in downtown on walls that are not of any significant importance, that are unsightly, that don't have, generally it's a blank wall, they don't have windows. And then it's also supposed to be 80%. And so here they're only proposing 18%. And that's really because if you drive down Superior going towards the bridge, you would not be able to see the full 80% of the wall here, is my understanding of why they're only proposing 18%. From a zoning perspective, we do not recommend approval of this sign, as we do not believe that this wall qualifies as unsightly according to the parameters of the zoning code. Thank you.
I guess,
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can, just to circle back to the, we appreciate Ms. Leonard's input. Landmark staff is also in agreement with the local committee and Ms. Leonard in that we recommend denial as proposed. It doesn't meet the Secretary of the Interior standards. So staff recommends denial.
All right, thank you for that additional report and information. We'll then open up the floor for the commission for questions and comments. Right, I'll start us off then. I would be in agreement with the staff, both from the zoning standpoint and the landmark standpoint, their recommendations. I feel that it doesn't meet the spirit of the requirements and is covering up the windows within, that wall versus a blank area that would be more appropriate. So I am not in support of this proposal. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the Perry Payne building, which is an important piece of architecture in our downtown warehouse neighborhood. It's was designed, I think, by Cadell Richardson, and it was a very cutting edge building of the time. People from all over came to see this building because of the construction and the number of windows on the front and just how it was built. But more importantly, it's a very beautiful, interesting building with a lot of articulation on the facade. And I think that big blank canvas that they're proposing would detract from the stateliness and elegance of this building. I also don't know what exactly is going to be put there, and of course we can't really comment on the subject of this sign, but most of what they were showing as examples were ads. So I really think putting a huge billboard type ad there would really degrade the building, and it would make me very sad to see it. So I am not in support.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Clicchia?
Yes, I agree with what Ms. Anderson had said and Mr. Musson. I think it's just obscures every concept of architecture as far as this building is concerned, including the windows. And it's overwhelmingly large and unnecessary in my opinion. So I propose rejection of the proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Clicchia. Other questions and comments from the commission? Would someone like to make a motion?
Michelle?
Yeah, I'll move that we deny as presented.
So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All right, not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
Do we,
Madam Chair, Ms. Leonard has her hand up.
Yes, Ms. Leonard? Ms. Leonard, did you have a?
You're muted.
I was muted. I apologize. Ms. Trot, I hate to nitpick, but is there any way that your commission could articulate the denial in your motion should this go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and into court?
All right, thank you. So we have a motion for denial. Ms. Anderson, could you please articulate why you feel that it's appropriate to deny?
Based on the, I think it's part of what the testimony is here, but based on the fact that this building is not unsightly or detrimental, and the size is inappropriate. And if anybody else wants to add to that motion, feel
If
free.
I can help you in addition to the requirements so that the wall mural shall not cover, destroy, or materially alter the architectural features distinct of this wall of the building.
Beautiful, thank you.
It helps. I'm reading the zoning code. Is that sufficient, Ms. Leonard?
Yes, I believe so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, I was, sorry, I was also thinking the anchoring of this mural against this wall would require a series of holes being drilled into the building, which I think violates the integrity of the building as well.
Thank you for that addition. Mr. Clickia, do you support the articulation of Ms. Anderson since you second the motion, I believe,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have the motion, a revision, acceptance. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Clickia,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmund,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Clickia,
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Mr. Edmund,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
All right.
I guess now that we're
Please call roll and announce the results.
not sure what's going on here.
Okay, I got us. I think somebody had their mic open watching the YouTube.
Interesting. Okay, excellent. Is the applicant still with us or did they exit?
Yes, no, we're still here.
Okay, so we would encourage you to, take the information that was given and follow up with staff if an alternate proposal is put in. But I think at this point, I hope you understand our feedback.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We'll then move on to our next applicant, the Joseph Gallagher School located at 6601 Franklin Boulevard. Renovation updates.
Thank you very much. My name is Murtaza Abbas with Architectural Vision Group. With me, I have Anders Smolters and Lorena Kusi. And then we also have the original criteria team, which was in front of the commission in August, Zora Pavlovich and Jeff Henderson. And then project owner representative Holly Delasanti with CMSD, with Cleveland Metropolitan School District. And Patty Chobe, I believe she might not be on the call, but I think she is. So that's our team. That's the people who will be continuing in this presentation. So we're here basically to provide an update on the exterior elevation for this renovation of Joseph M. Gallagher Pre-K 8 on Franklin Boulevard. Could you go to the next slide? Okay, so in August, if we could go back one slide. Thank you. So just kind of, it's been a few months since this project has been in front of the commission. Where it stands right now, we're working with Green Space Construction Services. This is a design build project. And so together we're the design build team. We took TDA's criteria and we continued on into the design. And so we are in design development. And we're also under construction on the interior. So in the meantime, what's been happening on the exterior is there was a structural study that was happening during our design. And so I'll just start off with what was presented and approved from Landmarks Commission, just for everyone's remembrance. So it was the criteria submission was a motion to be approved with a few caveats. There was really only one caveat, which was that the West 65th Drive to be exit only. And so our current design is in compliance with that. We're eliminating the 4 parking stalls adjacent to the reading garden off 65th. And we will come back to the commission for final landscape lighting and signage. The point of this presentation is to provide the commission the updates to the exterior elevation changes. So we're going to kind of review why the scope changed and then present the new exterior updates. So this was what was presented and approved. The scope was much different when this was approved. And due to the structural study, which we'll get into shortly, we'll kind of talk you through why the exterior has changed. So if we could kind of roll through a couple of these renderings. This one is off of Franklin, and then this is off of 65th Street. In essence, it was to replace all of the exterior windows and replace the specific brick that were spalling off as needed. And then it was to provide, they were putting in some brick where there was an addition for the administration off of 65th. There's some blue glazed brick and then some aluminum composite metal panel that would that was designed with the windows to provide some interest. We've also been working on the site, and we've been working with the Tree Planning Commission. We do have a tree preservation plan approval, and so we're currently. This plan is showing you which trees we were able to preserve. We worked with a city-approved arborist, and he came and he observed which trees were healthy and which trees weren't healthy, and then provide his recommendations. So that's the good news, is we do have tree preservation approval on this project. We're in compliance on that end. We're providing a better overall canopy with our the trees that we have to replace due to the Franklin Boulevard change. And all of the poles that are getting moved. And then on this plan, you'll also see that it's a one-way exit off of 65th. So those things are kind of in motion and in design right now. So kind of where the number 3 is off of 65th, that's the one-way exit and the 4 spots that were eliminated. But again, we will come back for final landscaping, final signage, and final lighting approval. So I wanted to take some time to talk about what's changed and what's kind of been the more information that we've gained in the time in our design development phase. So Osborne Engineering came out and did a structural study that was conducted to determine what were the reasons why there was all sorts of structural issues happening with the exterior envelope and exterior brick, both on the exterior and in the interior. On the exterior, you could see it was visibly spalling all throughout, and this has been happening for many, many years. And what was determined based on their study, the reason for that was the original clay brick was essentially left in the oven for not for too long, and it yeah, and it lost its compressive strength. So every kind of freeze thaw cycle, a layer of the exterior brick would continue to spall, and so due to this reason, once we were able to determine that was the original reason why this was happening, and it would continue to happen throughout, um, um, the owner, which I think Holly and Patty are here, they can speak to it. They determined that, we're doing a complete gut of the interior. We are updating the exterior to improve the site conditions. We were already, the scope was to replace the roof, replace all of the windows, to get to code. The best course of action for the building's long-term use was to demolish the existing brick and replace with a modern wall assembly with the correct water, air barrier, and insulation per current building code. This was due to water intrusion, structural issues, wind load, issues that the report came out with that was causing deflection, as you can see in these pictures of on the interior towards the classrooms. The brick walls were shifting in places an inch and a half. So there are a lot of things going on with the exterior walls. This is a steel frame building, so that's I guess the good news. So they're not necessarily load bearing CMU walls, but when we're renovating this building, so we would, I guess if you could go to the next slide. And we want to use this point of where we are at in the design and construction of this project to replace the failing brick, to solve all of the exterior wall structural issues, insulate the building per code, increase natural light for student learning. We wanted to use this as an opportunity to scale the building mass for the current population. This is the renovated building is going to bring a lot more younger kids to the school. It's a pre-K 8. The first floor is entirely kindergarten and pre-K, and then and first graders. So it was designed it was originally designed in the 70s with a larger with a more mature population, and so knowing that and knowing that how the scope has changed, this kind of we're in a place that we can do some unique alterations to the exterior. So we wanted to both highlight the existing character and also bring in new joyful elements. So we understand that this is in the historic district, but we also wanted to not ignore the opportunity that we had. And then since we're building from grade up, we need to solve a lot of the structural issues while also kind of using this as an opportunity to enhance the aesthetics, because this is a very important site in Cleveland. It has a lot of frontage throughout on Franklin, 65th, 69th, Bridge Avenue, and so I think that the team's really excited about where we are. So I would propose to kind of show you different elevations and vantage points. This vantage point is from the Franklin Reading Garden, right outside of Playground off of Franklin and kind of 65th Street. So the existing building, you can see, dark windows, dark brick, spotty brick because it has been replaced over the years, over the past 50 years, all throughout. And so if you look closely, you can see that they're not matching, and they're just continuing to deteriorate. So essentially, what we're proposing is to replace it. We had a couple, not challenges, I would say opportunities. Within the same building footprint, we want to propose to build exterior walls with masonry and some metal panel. So the masonry is 2 bricks, so a red brick and a beige brick, and we wanted to use the opportunity to break up that mass and also bring joy with colorful metal panels. Holly, I don't know if you're on, if you could comment about how the community presentation went a couple of weeks ago, and anything from the owner's side. And if you could, then I'll just jump back in and continue this presentation.
This is Patty. I'll jump in at this point, Murtaza, because I also wanted to give the commission members early support feedback that we received from the community, and which is why we were delighted to come to the commission today to present these new designs. As everybody knows, this project has been a unique one in our capital planning process that we have with the state of Ohio. It's unusual at this stage in the program, which is over 20 years old, to actually be able to renovate a building. And one of the reasons it's really important that we really transform this K-8 building or pre-K-8 building at this moment in time is that the footprint is really large. And if we were to try to replace and rebuild this particular school, we would not get the square footage or some of the other amenities that we currently have in this building. So with that being the case, the community was always supportive of a renovation, but as we went into schematic design, dealt with market conditions, understood the existing conditions of the building, there were a lot of constraints. So when the community found out that we could really, really transform the exterior of this building to look like an inviting school for our young people in this very family-oriented neighborhood, they were delighted as well. And we have some specific comments about adding color, breaking up the texture of the building. The windows were a really important additional change. And in general, everybody just loves how it's going from a very scary institutional looking building that doesn't look like it's inviting for students who are ages 5 to 13. And people just love the color and love all the other connections and improvements that we've been making. So I'll stop there, and again, I'm available for any questions about the other things that we've been working on with the community. But I think Murtaza has started to present, and I'll toss it back to him, and then we can open it up to questions.
Thanks, Patty. So, so what you see over here is the one way that we tried to break up that mass and bring some interest to these larger masses that you see. On your left of this rendering, this is a 2-story classroom portion. There's a 3-story classroom portion, and then there's these. It's very unique. There's these 3 kind of round stairwells that are 45 degrees. They're angled 45 degrees off of, so they're kind of pointing right at you when you drive by. They look like kind of silos. So we thought this was a nice opportunity to throw in color on these metal panels to bring interest and make it inviting for children and because ultimately this is who we're designing to. We're designing for kids. We wanted to both show character to the existing building, but also enhance it and potentially bring some more interest and joy to it. So so there's some vertical metal panel 2-foot 2 foot wide by 6 foot tall, alternating orange and gray on this elevation. Each unique vantage point kind of has a different color. And on this one, you'll see orange and gray alternating. We were able to bring in the stairwells themselves are very dark and dingy. And so we were able to bring in some glass that's going to be seen as you drive and walk through the neighborhood at the center part of the round portion. But we were also able to bring vertical glass elements on both sides of the stairwell. And then we're replacing all the glass as before with clear anodized aluminum frames and clear glass. The other thing I would throw in there is the beige brick horizontal banding and some vertical banding you see was meant to that was our proposal to help break it up. So I think this is good for this rendering. Maybe we can move to a different vantage point. This is the north elevation off of Franklin, the main entrance. So you can see it's it's kind of a little dark. It's a recessed entrance. There is an addition that's happening for the administration, which hasn't changed. The only thing that we're changing is, and we can go to it, is we wanted to bring some frontage to the main entrance. So we're proposing this metal canopy off of the brick piers that are shown. This is to kind of show that this is the main entrance, so the kids get cover when they're coming in and biking in. We'll have bike racks underneath off to the side, and we're showing blue and gray metal panel that's wrapping above the new addition. There's again, you'll see this is kind of a consistent element, the red and gray alternating brick throughout the building. It's pretty consistent. It's a little bit brighter than the brown brick that's there right now. I would say it's a lot, it's not too different, but it's enough of a difference to show some change. And that's the feedback that we got from our community presentations that both Then Design we're conducting and that AVG we're conducting throughout, is that them and the owners that were hoping that we could, brighten this up a bit. And so this is the other stairwell. Maybe we can go to the next elevation, the next rendering. So a little bit further down Franklin. So those are the existing stairwells and parking lot. So on this one we have gray and blue metal panel. It's consistent with the alternating and consistent with the windows, but it's blue in this corner. This gymnasium that you see over here, if we go back, it's another large mass. So you have on 65th you have a 2-story portion, and then on which is the gymnasium, and on 69th you have a 2-story classroom portion. They're flanking the main 3-story, and so we were able to add glass because we're going to be building up. We're going to be rebuilding the veneer. So this was we were lucky to show some frosted glass. There's two large 6x6 glass windows with clear anodized aluminum for the gymnasium with frosted glass. 2 on Franklin, 5 on 65th, and again 2 on Bridge. So a lot more visibility. That helps kind of break it up and make it inviting, bring some light into the school. So that was something that we were really happy and that we were able to do in this sequence of events. Yeah, if you don't mind, if you could go back just to the previous image, the Google Street View. It's a little bit tough to see because of the tree foliage and everything, but it's the gymnasium off to the right it's a large just brick mass that's just kind of sitting there, and it's maybe not the most inviting, and maybe not the brightest space. So that's one change, I would say. Okay. Go to another rendering. So this is the southeast elevation off of 65th Street and Bridge. This is the towards the left. You have a cafeteria side, and then we have the I guess you could call it a back of house area. So we wanted to again bring some interest, like we wanted to treat each elevation with the same importance because there is a lot of traffic that pedestrian and vehicular traffic that this neighborhood gets. So what you'll see in the next rendering is a combination of red and gray for this side of the building. Red and gray metal panel. Again, this is the kind of colorful joy that we're trying to bring to the building while also trying to replace the brick and treat it with the historical character that it has. And I believe this is the last elevation rendering that we have off of Bridge Avenue. This is the southwest. There's an existing playground that's going to get enhanced and enlarged. This is also the community entrance for the gymnasium. So this is kind of a better image of the gymnasium that you see. It's not the brightest. And so green and gray is where what this corner is showing for the metal panel, and the red and beige to be consistent over here. We have a brick for each of the stairwells up to about 6 feet, so which helps with kind of maintenance, and brick's the most durable of the substances. And then you'll see the cafeteria facing Bridge by the playground, and it kind of continues on. So those are a little bit larger windows. Then I guess to wrap it up, these are the 2D elevations of those renderings that you see. We have the red field brick, we have the beige brick, which is the secondary brick, clear anodized frames for the windows and exterior doors. And we have the gray metal panel over here, orange and blue flanking both of those stairwells. And then the east elevation is red and orange. And then all the same materials. And then south is red and green and gray. And blue and green and gray. Holly, I don't know if you want to jump in and add any last comments, closing comments?
Hi, this is Holly Delasanti, the Cleveland School District. Patty summed it up pretty well. I did want to emphasize one of our target audience members in our last community meeting, when we flipped to the rendering of a colored elevation. We had a preschool student in the back of the room, and the first thing he said was, "Wow, this is beautiful." So I think that sums it up on our end. We were thrilled when we looked at this opportunity and saw a chance to enhance this area and our building. So I'll turn it back over to AVG and then design.
Zora from then design, or Jeff, do you have any comments that you'd like to add as part of this presentation?
Also on board and in support of the new design for.
I'm good. I'm good. I think you did good. I think it looks good. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll turn it over to the commission. Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to present.
Excellent. Thank you for the very thorough presentation. We'll then move on to staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff was not aware that there had been any community meetings, and nor have we received any feedback. We do not have a report from Northwest Neighborhoods, nor anything from the councilwoman as well. This did not return to the local design review committee because this is a revision to an already approved plan. Staff appreciates the applicant looking at this building holistically and introducing a more vibrant solution. However, this plan reads as a new building when it's actually a rehabilitation of an existing building. And while brutalist architecture might not be everybody's favorite, it does have distinctive features, and Secretary of Interior Standards requires retention of defining features to buildings and should be retained. Staff would recommend tabling at this time because I think we should get the community feedback and we should get additional information, because this is a very striking change and the materials may or may not be appropriate at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns, for the staff report. Then we will open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Edmond, would you like to start us off?
Thank you, and thank you for those thoughtful comments, Carl. And I think what I'm going to say relates to that. This is a challenging building, I think, and it is an interesting piece of architecture, but I can certainly understand, you know, people's reaction to it. And I think I think the colorful interventions that you've done at the four corners and at the entries and identifying the entries, I think those are great, and I can certainly see why the community and kids, especially, you know, this is it's just a building for small kids, smaller kids than originally, but you know, it should, I think bringing that life, bringing the color, bringing light into the gym are great moves. But there is an architectural character to the building, to Carl's point, that I think I have some ideas about you might respond to. So if you could stay on that slide right there. You've got a lot going on architecturally in the design. And I think that, for example, the horizontal bands of variegating colors of brick is probably not necessary. And I feel like it's a different design idea that's competing with the design idea of these sort of major colorful moments in the building. So I would encourage you to maybe look at not having that. I understand the desire to break up the larger facades, although the facades aren't that imposingly huge. The original design breaks up the facades using the sort of articulation of mass in the same brick. And I wonder if you could, understanding you have to rebuild the wall anyway, and aren't we lucky that the brick was disintegrating, but I wonder if you could articulate the facade using that depth or something similar, or I don't know if it's appropriate to actually replicate it in the same way, but as opposed to, I think the horizontal banding isn't necessary, and I would consider looking at it just without the banding, and also perhaps using some of that depth articulation that the original design used. I don't know, I may be the only one here, but I think the reinterpretation of those corner stair towers with the color and the entry, I really think is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edmond. Other questions and comments from the commission? I'll interject mine at this point. I would agree with staff's comment on, I think that this is such a visible building, although this is a revision to the approval. To me, it feels more like a change. You know, it's not just changing the the blue color of metal panel that was proposed before to a different color or a small detail. This is a full scale, revision to the design. And although I appreciate and understand why you're taking it this way, I feel like it needs to be, we need to understand the community's feedback, and we need to understand the community development or the local design review committee's feedback also, to really, for me to feel comfortable deeming if this is appropriate or not revision. Because I do think this is a change, not like this is a major revision, not a minor revision. But I do, agree with Mr. Edmonds' comments that, if this would move forward, I do think it needs to be simplified some, although I do understand why you're trying to introduce the different elements like the banding so that it relates to other schools. I do think it's competing, and, there's ways that you could be closer to the spirit of the original architecture, but provide the interventions that you're looking for to provide that color and life to a building like this.
Madam Chair, this is Patty Chobe. We did hold a community meeting on February 8th. The Councilwoman Jenny Spencer, was in attendance and was supportive of the presentation. She is currently sitting in budget hearings, so is not able to attend today. And we do have written comments from 6 residents who live on the contiguous streets and who are very active community leaders that we have been working with since 2012 on this particular site. So I'm happy to pull that report from the automated survey tool that the district uses, and I can send those over to staff and they can distribute those comments to the commission members. The questions were very open-ended, so we wanted to elicit the real emotion of what people felt. And you'll see by the nature of the language, they were delighted. And they're the ones who will have to look at this building for the next, 20, 30, 50 years. So that being said, if that's acceptable, we will get that information over. I just did want to reiterate that we do have timelines with regards to the building. So any way that we can expedite, if there are adjustments that need to be made to the design, that we can do it in a timely fashion. There's a lot of other things, as you know, with these large buildings that, can add cost over time if we're delayed. And we have seasonal, building conditions that we have to deal with as well.
Understand. I think our process is a little, it's excellent to hear that you've done all that. But we'd like per our process, we need, a few days to review that prior to, our review and voting. Mr. Brunges, I see your hand went up there.
Madam Chair, staff was discussing, we have a design review committee meeting next week that could review this. We could also contact Northwest Neighborhoods and the councilwoman to have all their stuff sent in, and we can have this brought back in 2 weeks to our next regularly scheduled Landmarks Commission meeting, if that would be fast enough.
That would be really helpful. Thank you.
So I think that is encouraging to hear, because we do appreciate the need to, with schools especially, your timeline is very focused of when you can start and have to get these things complete. So Giancarlo, you have additional questions and comments?
Yes, I was just wondering if that striping is the limestone, is that what's planned?
Sorry, are you asking about the brick, the beige brick?
Yeah.
It's a brick.
Yeah.
It is a,
it's a different color brick.
Yes, it's just a different color brick. We rendered it a few different ways, and when we rendered it with one color, I think when we're there in person, we see that building. It's actually, because it is 3 stories, it is it feels more massive than maybe these renderings and Google Street Views are doing it justice. And so that was the reason for the introduction of a different brick to kind of help break up their giant, blocks. They're huge boxes, and that was the reason for that intention. And then
just the light and the colors and the dark kind of forbidding brick.
And then,
Sorry. I didn't hear the comments.
So the whole point was to lighten the brick up a few notches so it's not as kind of as dark and gloomy as it is presently. And that was the aim, while still maintaining the massing and the shapes of the building, just to lighten it up a notch or two.
Well, I agree. I think it works. It does lighten up. It emphasizes the window structure. I think it's a very ambitious, interesting, beautiful, actually. It's the colors is a total renovation of the structure. And I do like the striping. And well, I guess we're waiting for the committee meetings.
I guess one point I'd like to add regarding Carl's comments regarding the preservation of it, alongside the other comments regarding the actual brick itself, but in terms of the existing character of the windows and the canted brick, if we can go to one of those existing images, there are observations and comments about kind of the defects, the structural defects and the water intrusion that occurred because of this specific type of wall section. It's just not a great, I would say, way to design a new wall. And so, we can potentially provide that, and maybe that would kind of help give you more information on why we did what we did in terms of simplifying it. There's issues that this presents as designed.
So the entire facade is being redone. Is that correct?
Correct. The windows are essentially being replaced as is, except for the additions in the stairwells and the additions in the gymnasium. But because this is a steel frame building with the lintels are where they are, they're being replaced in the exact same places.
But you're pulling them out to the face of the brick. Right now you have probably what, an 18-inch recess of those window system from the face of the main, face of the brick.
That's correct.
And so you're using the lintels, but you're relocating all of those windows. So they're not in this exact, they're just the same proportions in a similar location. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Those are my comments.
Other questions or comments from the commission? I mean, related to the Brutalist architecture, I think the examples of what you're seeing within the current design, what the issues are, would be good to understand. I do think, is it an overall flaw in the detail, or is it a flaw just how they detailed it, would be a question, that I have, not fully knowing what issues that you have uncovered, in your discovery portion of this project. Understanding some of those would help validate what is appropriate here. I do think, having some spirit of right now you've removed the majority of this, what Brutalist architecture is currently there. And that is by design or requirement because of brick replacement. But I do feel that, it would be appropriate to maintain or to, let's say, pay homage to some of the details of the original building, so that you understand what was there.
Could that be done? Some ideas that we've had, with historical, showing pictures on the interior or in a display case that we have located in the main entrance, kind of paying homage that way. We've done. This is there's no stone in this building. It's not from the 1930s, 1940s or something like that. We have this opportunity to redesign the building, rebuild the wall, and design it in a way, detail in a way that water is not being allowed into the wall assembly. The vapor barrier is in the correct location, the insulation is in the correct location, the building envelope is better situated.
But presently, there was no insulation in the building.
Correct.
It was an uninsulated building.
Yes, that's
Sure.
true. I mean, I think we've heard one person commented they like the introduction of a different brick and the banding, and another person commented that maybe it's a little too busy. So in a couple of weeks, I'm just wondering what changes we should make to these renderings elevations, or is it just additional information that's needed, which we can provide very soon? Structural concerns and observations, community comments, councilwoman's comments. Is that what's being requested right now, or are there changes?
All the the feedback that you've received is required for us to do a proper review of this. I think you will, we are a board of multiple people, so you will sometimes hear conflicting views, which you have here. I think taking those comments and addressing them, we need to be somewhere in the middle. I don't think we've said remove all striping, but because in some cases it does reduce, or it breaks up the larger masses of the brick. But I personally feel it needs to be reduced because it's competing with your metal panel designs. It's taking away from it rather than allowing that to stand out. And it does definitely remove any understanding of what the original structure looked like, which was fairly simple with really no detailing previously, except for the canted sill.
Madam Chair, would it be helpful for the architecture team to just provide a brief technical memo that does describe what Murtaza mentioned a few minutes ago? There have been very extensive conversations with the engineers, the architects, the suppliers of some of the materials that will be used to both create the vapor barrier, put the insulation where it should be, and why this type of window was chosen. And a lot of it is based on the structural integrity of the building. And given that we have this opportunity to replace the brick, it's that's the strategy that would be used to, again, avoid those other causes of building degradation that have happened over the years. Because the school district has spent a good chunk of change over the years replacing portions of the brick. So it was not that it was not an unknown issue, but it was initially defined by the state's report as something that could just be partially replaced and selectively replaced based on the fact that so much other brick had been replaced. But given the structural integrity issues, energy efficiency, and all of that. So would a short technical memo help the commission understand those decisions?
Well, I'm a technical geek, so and it would help me because I do think I personally support, and I'm sure I can speak for the commission, of using this, like you said, as an opportunity to increase the energy performance of this building. And it is the right thing to do. It's just really down to the details that we're talking about. I think we're in support of this project and support with replacing the brick. It's just really, as Mr. Brun just remind me, my favorite phrase of the devil is in the details. Trying to meet your need and requirements, your current and future needs, but maintain the spirit of what this building previously or currently is I think where we need to review. And so it's the details that we're talking about. Like, I think overall the concept of the brick replacement I'm in favor of and have no issue with. It's just the extreme change from what was there before to what is here is really what we're talking about in the details of the designs. Mr. Kalikia, I saw your hand go back up.
Yes, I would just like to say that I do like the striping. I think it lightens up the whole. I mean, we're looking at a basically new building. The old building was extremely unattractive, in my opinion, and kind of rigid. This one is very, very light, very, very inviting. And I think, obviously there's a great deal of work that's gone into this by the architectural firm, and I think I like it as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Giancarlo, for your opinion also. Any further questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I used to live on that street, very close to that building, and there are a lot of people in the neighborhood who spoke fondly of the old West High building that was there, and people did not like that building. I think this is a very huge improvement over what was there, and very elegant. And frankly, I guess as a preservationist, I'm very torn of, keeping the more brutalist design as opposed to this lighter, more joyous design. So, those are my comments. I basically like what I'm seeing, but I understand, the preservationists' reticence with making this big of a change. But I kind of agree with Giancarlo. It's basically a new building, same footprint, new building.
So I think staff has made the recommendation, and I would encourage the same of tabling this to allow us to become aware and of the public feedback, the councilwoman's feedback, and the design review committee's feedback before we move on taking a vote on this project. Would someone entertain, or if someone agrees, could they please make that motion?
Could I just make one comment before it goes to
Sure.
motion? So our partner Greenspace is gonna they're they're gonna bug me if I don't ask, but because this is a design build, we're already under construction. Am I hearing in essence that we need more? The commission needs more time to hear more information and stuff. But where we are right now in construction is we need to put out, there's already been an interior demolition and abatement package. The next package that we have going out very soon, in a couple of weeks, is the another selective demolition package to remove all the brick and windows and underground plumbing, which we're going to submit to the city in a couple of weeks. So the reason why we wanted to present to Landmarks today was to request approval for the exterior design changes, so that once we submit our demo, we're on the right track and in terms of the overall design. Am I hearing that we're kind of on the right track and our sequence of events is okay? Because we just want to make sure that we're not too far off from in our design before we're going to be removing brick in a month or so. So we don't want to, just timeline's a big thing on this project. Obviously it's a very expensive project for the owners, and it's a big change. So I just want to ask one more time, just are we on the right track? I understand the more information is needed. That's my last comment.
I think you've heard from about 4 of us so far. Is there other commission members who would like to comment? You've heard my feedback, Mr. Edmonds, Mrs. Anderson, and Mr. Kalikia. That I think, I'm personally in support of the project and replacing the brick, but I'm not 100% aligned with the final brick detailing, specifically related to the striping. Other feedback from commission members? Mr. Giancarlo, you
Yeah, I don't see how that would impact on the demolition portion.
Well, let's let Mr. Musson or Mr. Brunges, any feedback on that based on process and protocol? Carl or,
I would say that you're on the right track. You're basically looking at a 2-week delay in your process right now instead of you'll still have to submit for your permit for the demolition, I believe, anyway.
Yes.
And that will take a little bit of time, so to be processed on the building and housing side. So I don't think it's going to impact your timeline at all by doing going back to the local committee and the extra 2 weeks.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
So are we suggesting that we approve with these stated conditions?
We are suggesting that this be tabled so it can go back to the local design review committee for us to gather all of the public comments, receive comment back from the local, from Northwest Neighborhoods and from the councilwoman, and then for additional detailing and potential changes in the details.
So with that said, based on the recommendation of staff and to allow us to be aligned with the correct process for our reviews, would someone like to make a motion to take, well, we first would require permission from ownership to table your project.
This is Holly Delasanti. Yes, you have our permission.
Thank you. So with the permission and ownership, would someone like to make a motion to table? Mr. Edmond.
Move to table the project.
Right, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the result.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Clicchia,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yeah.
Mr. Edmond,
Yes.
Assistant Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
thank you. Like we said, we look forward to
Thank you
seeing
for
this
your-
come back. It's an exciting project.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. We'll now move on to our next applicant located 1545 West 25th Street, demolition.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is Nate Law with Ohio City Incorporated. I'm joined today by Ben Trimble and Tom McNair from our office, as well as Sarah Meyer and Sean McDermott from Cleveland Metro Parks. This is a proposal to demolish an existing building known as the Front Steps Building. Next slide. So here's just a little bit of context about the site project. It's on West 25th Street, nearby Riverview Tower, and it overlooks the hillside, Irishtown Bend. Next slide. This is just a little bit of information about the building from the county's website. It was built in 1958. I believe it was originally constructed as a travel lodge hotel. It's listed as in poor condition. Next slide. These are some photos from when it was still in use as a transitional housing facility in 2017. Next slide. We could just run through these. These are existing photos taken just a couple weeks ago. So this just shows the balcony. There's a lot of trash that's accumulated on the property over time as it's been out of commission for a while now. And again, just showing. This is the big image that we like to show. So this is part of the issue and why this building needs to be demolished is that this is the parking lot area in the back of the facility, and it is. You can see the grade there has shifted significantly. It's actually a little bit more. You can see it better in person, but this whole hillside is potentially at risk of collapsing into the riverfront. This riverfront is an economic driver of over $4 billion of product moved a day, I believe. So This building is a significant health risk and contributes to the potential of the hillside collapsing. Next slide. Again, you can just kind of see the, that slope that's changed. That was all originally the same slope. And then this is just the plan for demolition. All the building utilities will be disconnected and capped at the source. Building and foundations will be removed in their entirety. The site will be graded and seeded to match the existing contours and vegetation. And yeah, the contractor shall apply and pay for all demolition permits. Next slide. And this is more about what will be there in the future. So Irishtown Bend Park is a future park proposed, I think 23 acres. This project is adopted and approved by the City Planning Commission, and where this is located, that will be part of the park as well. And again, just showing some of the renderings from the park. I think that's it. So if there's any questions, we're here, and Metro Parks is here to answer any questions if there are any about the demolition. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to design review committee feedback.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Ohio City Design Review Committee, which did recommend approval as presented. They did briefly discuss the fencing for the site after it is demoed.
All right, thank you for that. And moving on to staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We conducted a site visit last week. Staff does not find the building to be contributing to the historic district, being outside the period of significance. Staff recommends approval of the demolition. However, the requirement to document the urban art that is located on the exterior of the building. And there is also one fairly mature tree in the front that should be considered for saving if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open up the floor to the committee or commission for questions and comments. Or before I go there, Ms. Fields, your planning commission, sorry. So yes, we'll open up for the commission questions and comments. Ms. Fields, would you like to start us off?
You're muted.
Thank you. Just wanted to express the support from the administration for the demolition of this project. This is something that we are supportive of, and the Irishtown Bend project, and also just understand the critical need to stabilize the hillside. So we are in full support.
Thank you for that addition. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was in attendance at the site visit, and I fully agree with all the comments made here by the staff and Ms. Fields that the building is not contributing and needs to be demolished as soon as possible. I think the word that comes to mind, the oxymoronic phrase, is attractive nuisance. It's just attracting problems, blight, crime, who knows what, litter. So I think the sooner it comes down, the better.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Colicchio?
I agree with Ms. Anderson's comments. I walk by that building several times a week, and I've been wondering for several years when it should be demolished and replaced with a beautiful park. I do agree that there is one tree there that's quite interesting, and that could be saved and become part of the future park. That would be a good thing to do. Otherwise, I'm in favor of demolition.
Thank you, Mr. Colicchio. I would echo all the comments that have been made. I was surprised it hasn't come down earlier based on the condition of the building or been proposed to be removed earlier. So I'm full support of the proposal. Other questions or comments from the commission? Would someone like to put forward a motion? Mr. Dry.
Sorry, I would move that we approve as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Dryer?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchio,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmond,
Yes.
Assistant Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Trosik,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Well, very exciting project. We look forward to, this, small part moving forward so that the overall park can move forward also.
Thank you for your time. We are too.
We'll move on to our next applicant located at 186569 West 22nd Street, renovation and addition.
Madam Chair, this has been tabled and we would need a motion to take it off the table before presentation.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to remove it from the table, being tabled?
I move that we move to remove it from the table.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. I'm assuming no further discussion is required. So Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Motion to untable, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchio,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Edmond,
Mr. Edmond had to excuse himself.
thank you. Assistant Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Trosik,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Excellent. So now I'd like to welcome the applicants to review the revisions or the updates to the project since you last were in front of us.
Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Brian Spear. Paul Began is with us as well, I think, and Susan Broadwater, the architects on the project. Paul,
Welcome.
do you want to present or should I?
Oh, no, that'd be fine with me presenting. And Carl, good job on having the demolition project right before this one because we're starting with the same slide. So that works out pretty well. A little bit farther down on Irishtown Bend project is our project. I have a few slides that are just a refresher to refamiliarize yourself with the project as it has been a few months since we have presented to you. So this is located at the far end of the where the Irishtown Bend is. The property does have a portion of the slope going down to Franklin Avenue at the bottom of the hill, directly behind the West Side Market parking lot on West 22nd Street, which has a cul-de-sac. Dan showing the site where it is currently right now. We can go on to the next one. And these are some pictures of the existing building. They're reminder of the history of this. So when they put in the train line, which is now the red line, they relocated two buildings to this site and connected them together. So in essence, there are two buildings right next to each other, and then an infill was connected in between the two so that they became one building. As you can see from these existing photos, one of the buildings actually they put backwards, right? The front of the house ended up on the front of the building ended up on the back of the building when they did it. So again, just wanted to kind of refamiliarize you with the project and how kind of it got to this existing thing. We can go on to the next one. Just some additional photos that we've provided so that you can see the context on this cul-de-sac. Essentially, it is On one side of the street, the only building on this section of the street, the other side is the church. We can go to the next, through the next couple if you'd like, just so you can kind of see the context. Again, here we have on West 22nd Street, looking a little bit more down, what would be over the top of the slope of the hill. We can move on. As you pass the buildings, you can see what it is here. We can go on to the next one. From the cul-de-sac looking back to the building, you can see this right here. Okay, we can go on to the next one. And this is just looking back across the street from the project, the church that is there. We can go on to the next one. Okay, so last time we presented before you, I think generally the project was acceptable to the committee. The conditions that we had from last time were to submit final materials. The materials noted and articulated on the elevations, which when we get to them, we can kind of show that. Landscaping plan, exterior lighting, and then we did not present to you the rear elevation last time, and so we did want to be able to present that to you. We have spent the last few months quite a bit working through the design, a lot of working on a lot of different pieces, part of it constructability, part of it costs, part of it recommendations from this committee, and have modified the design, I think, accordingly in a much more positive direction. Again, just a quick understanding of the project. The two buildings, we are adding a third addition to these buildings right now, and part of the addition goes to the south towards the cul-de-sac, and then there is a one-story addition that is on the north side, or is actually planned north side, which is the east side of the building, looking down the slope of the hill, which is for a garage, of which on top of it will be an exterior patio. On the front of the building, we had presented last time that we are adding some new steps. This is a kind of a split level building. It's a half flight down, half flight up. We are adding some new steps to the front of these buildings and going up to the second level off of the street. Previously, we had shown a lowered courtyard. We have removed that from the project, and now we're just doing a small patio out front with a small wall in front. We can go to the next one. Landscape plan, just remind you a little bit, as a good portion of this property is on the slope. The ownership group has retained the same landscape architect that's working with Irishtown Bend to extend what would be the landscaping plan for Irishtown Bend down the slope. So we don't have that to show right now, other than noting it's going to be integral what's going to be happening with the rest of the slope. This is just kind of the end piece, and noting that the Metro Parks is going to be doing a connector path on the other side of this property. So I think the continuity of the landscaping there. Otherwise, we have landscaping at the front of the building, some lawn, some shrubs, some trees. As you can see, some of the materials there. What we wanted to do is make sure that we have materials that are providing color and interest year-round for the project, so that you can kind of see what we're doing there with the landscape. We can go on to the next one if you would like. One of the requests or requirements was providing a drainage plan for you. We actually have a full set of civil drawings at this point in time, which are being coordinated with the other city departments for storm and things like that. But essentially, there is a driveway that wraps around the building. As it does right now, we are extending it so that the drop in grade is not as severe to get to the back. As we are doing that, a little bit of extension, we'll be adding a retaining wall, which would be kind of on the southeast side of that building. Let me go to the next one. So exterior elevations, and we do have some renderings that we'll be able to, but we did want to make sure we submitted the requested and required exterior elevations with the material choices called out. Again, we have the building as it is with the two particular pieces on the left as you're looking this elevation. That existing connector is going to be replaced with a new connector piece, and then we're mirroring that same connector piece, new connector piece with the new addition to these two existing buildings with some elevated stairs that bring you up off of grade on this one, adding a cornice piece to connect all of the pieces together on here. If you recall, last time we talked about our intent is to keep the existing brick on the existing building, although knowing that as we already have two different colored bricks right now, they're similar in tone, and we're bringing in a third one. The intent would be we are going to be doing, as part of the masonry restoration, repointing the whole thing. So we're going to grind down all of the mortar joints. We're going to be doing a brick stain so that we can bring all of the existing brick in alignment with the same color tone as the new brick, and then mortaring all of the joints in there so that we kind of have a complete cohesive look to all of the brickwork that's going to be done. Part of what we're asked as a consideration last time to look at utilizing limestone or natural stone in lieu of cast stone. And we appreciate Mr. Kalikia giving us some resources to go check that out. And we have, mostly through review of constructability and some budget issues, concluded that we're still going to use some cast stone and not do natural stone here. What we found is that the material costs are essentially similar. So Mr. Klicker was correct that the cast stone and the limestone are same material costs. There is a premium cost, and again, we've had two different masonry restoration contractors look at this for us. Because the cast stone, we can cast the anchors into those pieces. There's not additional labor as there would be with the natural stone pieces to cut out or adhere anchors to those pieces to be able to put them on the building. So the material costs are essentially the same. The labor costs, there is a little bit of a premium because of what needs to be done to the natural stone pieces, which can be accommodated in a casting process with cast stone. Nonetheless, I think we're going to have a very similar look to what we'd want to do with limestone anyways. We can go on to the next one if you'd like. This is the rear elevation. And again, it'll be more apparent in the renderings for you. It is a one-story garage addition to the back of the building, of which on top there is going to be a patio. We are going to be using brick for a wall on there with a ornamental metal railing on top of it with piers. So again, we'll be able to see that a little bit more when we look at the renderings. We can go to the next one. This is good. Thanks for this detail. I appreciate you pulling this out. So one of the discussions we had also last time we presented to you is we had a full cast stone piece added to the bottom of the building to act like a water table from grade up. Part of budget analysis was that that wasn't going to work out as well, but we'd still like to create that water table piece So we're going to be adding a cast stone band into the existing building, which we will carry through on the new building addition onto this as well too, of which we're going to remove a couple courses of brick during the restoration process and insert the cast stone right into there. It's a triple width masonry wall. We can go on to the next one. Here's again kind of a pulled up detail of the elevation, just so you can kind of see what we're doing with the materials on there. It'll be a little bit more apparent too on the renderings when we get to them. Again, the top of the garage is going to have some masonry piers with cast stone tops and some metal ornamental metal railing pieces in between. We can go to the next one. I wanted to pull up again. Hopefully someday we can go back to in-person meetings, because it's so fun to be able to pull up all of those heavy materials to present in front of the board. But in lieu of that, the best way that we found is to pull up some pictures to kind of show the intention or the materiality that we'd like to do. So these are pictures kind of showing what we'd like to do as far as the brick color, the color and kind of detail of the cornice piece that we are adding onto there, the cast stone pieces at the entry, and the lighting fixtures that we plan to use, as well as the ornamental metal railing. We can go on to the next one. Right now, our plan, we've met with Pella and using aluminum clad wood windows for the entirety of the project. All of the existing windows that are in the building right now will be removed and replaced. And obviously the same windows will be installed in the new addition as well too. We can go on to the next one. This is just, they're black as far as the aluminum on the exterior of the windows. We can go on to the next one. Here we go. We can kind of see the rendering right here. We're doing the cast stone as far as the new connector pieces in between there, and also on the front entry steps, some black ornamental metal railings for the pieces in the front. We can go on to the next one. Again, just the same the materials, noting here too, the cast stone band that we are adding differ from last time I showed you as far as having cast stone from that point all the way down to grade. We can go on to the next one. So you can kind of see what we're doing on the back of the building here with the one-story garage addition and the patio up on the top of it. We can go on to the next one. Again, a little bit more of the same. I think that's it.
And this is Brian Spear. I'm the manager of the ownership group. I wanted to add two things for the committee's consideration. Number one is that in terms of community support, our neighbors are St. Emmerich's Church and Ohio City Farms Refugee Response. And we've had a number of discussions with both entities, and they're extremely supportive of this project. Additionally, the city has been extremely supportive of the project, both with Councilman McCormick and with a number of different people within the city that we've worked with. So that would be the first thing I wanted to add. The second thing I wanted to add is, our last meeting on September 22nd, the committee was good enough to be very explicit about what the conditions for approval were and what the considerations were. And it made it so that Paul and I were able to go back and create action that was based around that. The submission that we've provided today meets the conditions that were outlined, which Paul walked through. The considerations, one of the reasons that it's taken us a while is that, putting the engineering stuff, the geotech stuff aside, we did want to integrate what this committee had suggested that we look at for considerations. And you'll notice that in the renderings, there's a whole lot less cast stone than what was there previously. The balcony on the north, Madam Chair, I think that you suggested changing the north balcony to match the aesthetic of the railings on the rest of the building. That was also met. And so we, went back and forth on a number of these things, and we think that this is the right combination of it all. And so with that, thank you again for the feedback that was provided previously, and we're looking forward to your comments.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll begin with Design Review Committee recommendations.
Madam Chair, Ohio City Design Review Committee recommended approval with the caveat that the cast stone be changed to a more compatible brick. The committee members also questioned the color of the mortar and the proposed retaining wall. They had a lengthy discussion about the appropriateness of the cast stone elements above the stairwells in the front of the building.
Right. Thank you for that summary. Staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by PetPot this week, which looks at public right-of-way improvements, and they stated that an encroachment permit is required, street opening and obstruction permit, trees in the right-of-way need a tree permit, and a tree preservation plan is needed, and remarked on possibly including sidewalks along the frontage, which are not included. As mentioned, the project was previously tabled with the following notes, which were very well outlined. Conditions to submit or present final materials with materials articulated and colors, final landscaping plan with materials, final lighting plan with fixtures, final rear elevation with colors, details for the water table impact on the stone base with either cast stone or natural stone submitted, and considerations for the materiality of the two entrance towers or feature pieces, looking at natural stone versus cast stone versus brick, the Juliet balcony removal, recommendation that the third floor has 3 windows, fourth floor has 4, changing the detailing of the north balcony from modern to match the north and west elevation and minimize the bracket details. So staff would like to see some items addressed, such as a final material board and lists, a lighting plan, and a tree preservation plan. Staff is also in agreement with the local committee and commission comments regarding the introduction of cast stone on the building, and share some concern over the removal of the sidewalk along the frontage.
Okay. Thank you for that report. We'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. I guess I will start us off. I do appreciate you listening to our feedback and really taking some of these to heart and trying to simplify the design. We'll take them one at a time. And, I appreciate the imagery that you have submitted to represent the spirit of the materials you're looking at, but I do still feel we need the exact manufacturers of the materials and the color lines, submitted. I don't think it's something that would be, it's not going to hold up the review of this, but it will be required for any permit to be for a full approval for permit. I do like that you have simplified the water table and really try to add accents and not full fields of your cast stone material. I still feel like the cast stone, similar to what the local committee had said. I don't know if the cast stone towers at your 2 stairs. I personally don't love the cast stone there still. I would appreciate it them to just be brick. The sample imagery that you did, include in your package does, sort of exemplify the beauty of and simplicity of some of the structures, and that you're pulling your detailing from, that it's just a simple brick building with the elegant arch to articulate your entry versus having to add additional material in those locations. So that's my personal opinion. For clarification, you submitted your landscape plan, your lighting, the light that was on your precedent board, is that the line and the manufacturer in line of the light fixture that you'll be supplying, that's the only fixture you'll be using on the entire building? Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair. So there are on the renderings and also on the elevations shown and noted where we're planning to do exterior lighting. There's no intent to put any lighting in the cornice or anything like that. We're having lighting at the entrances, and that is the light fixture, and also on the garage side light fixtures that were shown at the back entrance as well too. So yes, that is the intent, is to, we're not trying to light this up like a Christmas tree. We're trying to be a little bit respectful of the area and the neighborhood. Noting that the ownership group is coordinating with Cleveland Public Power to possibly put some nice street lights on this section of West 22nd. So, saying that this is the only lighting that we're planning right now, that's what we can show you because that's what we can control, noting that there's some additional lighting that we're hoping is going to work out with Cleveland Public Power for the street.
Sure, no, that's excellent. I appreciate the simplicity of, the use of the light and, selective use at just your entry points is what I have picked up on. Is that correct? So just like the two flanking each major entry is really where it's being used, and you said on the rear also.
Yes.
Adjacent to the doors. Okay.
That is correct.
All right. I had another comment on the sidewalk. I would agree with PetBot's feedback that I feel sidewalk would be appropriate here, knowing how what a integral location this property is between that future connection onto the Metro Parks path to the Irish Town Bend. And the imagery that you started with at the beginning does appear to have a sidewalk that will be added from Irish Town Bend basically to and through this property. I feel that a sidewalk would be appropriate to add in the front of this property so that ultimately you're the link between that new trail connector to the Irish Town Bend. So I would agree with PetBot's recommendation that a sidewalk be added to the project. I do.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think representation, and Jessica, feel free to jump in if you want. We had a discussion about the sidewalk, and maybe it's best to go back to kind of the walkthrough photos that are there. One more, maybe one more. Okay, so the sidewalk currently goes just in front of the building. It does not go anywhere to the cul-de-sac, and it does not connect anything on the end. The Irish Town Bend project does not have a sidewalk coming right through in front of this building. So that is not part of the plan in any way, shape, or form. So the sidewalk on the other side of the street actually does connect over through to the backside of the West Side Market parking lot. The discussion with PetBot yesterday was they understood and actually did not have again, the discussion was, hey, this is a sidewalk that doesn't start or end anywhere. So we could see why we didn't think it was necessary. That being said, our planner, Matt Moss, at the beginning of the project kind of felt the same way. Hey, there's no real reason to put a sidewalk back in here because it doesn't start or end anywhere. So the discussion at PetBot was really more, well, our rules and kind of regulations say, hey, if you're doing a new project, you got to repair the sidewalk. We could repair the sidewalk, but we think for a more complete project, the way that we have presented it is extending a sidewalk from the front entries down to the curb is more appropriate than repairing and putting in a sidewalk that doesn't start or end anywhere.
And if I may too, just two things that I don't think are apparent from the drawings or what we've discussed previously is that if you look at this picture here where the black car is and just beyond it where that telephone pole is, the grade drops down quite a bit after those guardrails. And so it's not possible to have a sidewalk extend beyond that unless it went into the street itself. So the sidewalk does end there no matter what we do. The second point I wanted to make was that the stairs that come out from the building, we have an encroachment permit that we're trying to get, and these stairs would come into the sidewalk already. So if we were to have a sidewalk through this area, then it would require us to pull these trees in the front as well. And so I just wanted to point those two things out.
So you feel that during construction, you're able to maintain these trees?
We've gone back and forth on that and what's possible. I don't think that we know for sure if these trees, we know that the trees that are on the right side of this image are not possible to be maintained, but the ones that are in the front of the building, we obviously would like to try to keep those. Those are beautiful, mature trees, but we don't know yet what's possible and what isn't.
And looking at knowing the area that has the guardrail, that's part of the Irish Town Bend development, correct?
Yes, it is.
And right now, there is sidewalk that comes down 22nd Street and just terminates at that guardrail. I'm not familiar enough, maybe Carl or Dan has some feedback related to that. I'd be surprised they're not extending the sidewalk in that area, but Carl or Dan, do you have feedback on that?
Madam Chair, I'm not exactly certain what the plans for the sidewalk are. I know there is, there's some significant grade change going on in this whole area. But I'm not sure what the exact plans are, but it seems that more access, for pedestrians via sidewalk is always going to be a good thing.
Right. Because I would be surprised if they're pulling a path up to the cul-de-sac that they would not supply a section of sidewalk or encourage to have a path to connect that sidewalk or that path connector to the sidewalk that is only a few hundred feet away. But I don't have the backing of the knowledge of the plan though but I think that's why I align with PetBots that a sidewalk would be appropriate here. I think it should be coordinated with the Irish Town Bend project.
And if I could point out too, I do work with the Irish Town Bend project. As Paul had mentioned, I've met with the landscape architects, and we haven't advanced it a whole lot. Frankly, it's moving at a bit of a slow pace. But the current plan for that area is that the Ohio City Farms would have a terraced farming structure that would go all the way down to Franklin. And so again, it's going to be used for agricultural purposes are the only plans that I've seen so far. And as shown on this slide, the proposed stair location actually comes to the east side of the property, not to the west where we're considering that sidewalk. And so this would connect Irish Town Bend to the West Side Market parking lot outside of the cul-de-sac and outside of everything else. And so those are the plans that I've seen so far, meaning that across the street where the church is would be the active sidewalk that connects all the way through to Bridge Avenue. And you might be able to see it a little bit on this, is that when you go to the left side of the screen, the northwest side of the property, it's a very steep grade that goes beyond that guardrail. And so there would have to be a lot of fill that's put in and retaining walls because Franklin Avenue comes right up next to it. So it's just, as a non-expert and non-geotech guy, I can just say that they would have to make material changes and add a lot of fill and add retaining walls in order for that to be possible, given where Franklin Avenue is located and given the plans for the terrace farming.
And again, here's what I'll say. If the Irish Town Bend project has a sidewalk coming here, we'd be more than happy to accommodate that if that made sense for connection purposes. We're not trying to say that no, we don't want to do that. What we're saying is we don't think that is going to happen, and as such, putting a sidewalk that starts and ends nowhere just to be in front of this project really does not have any meaning to for this significantly. So, and again, I think the characterization that Petbot said that we should do sidewalks, that was not what it was. It was, hey, we need to look at this a little bit more, but just because our checkbox on our computer says that if you're doing a project, you got to fix the sidewalks. That was more the comment, more than, oh, you need to put sidewalks here from Petbot's perspective. And Ms. Beam, you could tell me if I'm mischaracterizing that discussion. I mean, here's what I would say. If the committee so inclined, if they wanted to condition to coordinate any sidewalk access with the master plan for the Irishtown Bend project and connectivity as a condition, I'm sure we can live with that.
Okay, well, I appreciate your feedback there. That's helpful, and that is the way that I'm leaning. But let's hear some other feedback. I do, Miss Penny. I apologize. Who do you represent? Are you with ownership here?
No, I work for the city. I'm the manager of urban design and architecture, and I sit on the Petbot committee. So I wanted to provide some additional context for the sidewalk conversation. So Petbot was not asking for the applicant to provide a connection to the future Irishtown Bend. It really was, there is city standards in place that you need to maintain and repair existing sidewalks. So the conversation was also wanting to provide like an ADA ramp to be able to cross the street as well. So Petbot was going to do some additional research, but it did seem like it is a city standard. And so I don't know what the appeal process would be to not implement a sidewalk.
Thank you for that explanation, and I apologize. Mr. Musson tried to queue me up, and I didn't see his message quick enough. So thank you for that explanation. That is helpful. Ms. Anderson, questions or comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been to the building a few times, and I'm somewhat familiar with the site. And I understand where the applicant is coming from with the sidewalk. There really isn't anything you're connecting to and fro on that side of the street. So I could see giving a variance or making an allowance in this particular situation for there not being a sidewalk. I think they probably should look into whether the park will be extending a sidewalk from that northern end, but from the discussions I'm hearing now, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen, but I think that's something to take into consideration. And overall, this is a big improvement from the original design that we saw. So, basically, I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Moss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'm Matt Moss. I'm the neighborhood planner for the area with the Cleveland City Planning Commission. I believe, to my recollection, like the applicant mentioned, Paul Began mentioned, our Mr. Brenges and I, we met with Paul and Mr. Spear on site. I believe it was roughly a year ago now. And we did have a discussion about the sidewalk, to my recollection, and about much of what has been discussed already, that it is, it seems to be only solely serving this building, and that the utility at that time, I did question myself, but I think based on further review, I do think it does have utility, especially in providing ADA access for people to, even if it's just meeting someone they know who's living here, or even just being able to connect the existing walkways that are currently shown on their site. I think a sidewalk has that utility in providing that. I think my initial analysis, again, just going through the existing building and being on site and taking a preliminary look at the site, it did seem questionable in terms of its utility. But it's not always, it doesn't always come to my mind initially to think about considerations for access of those with mobility challenges, and it's something that I think we try to do when we thoroughly review projects. So I think that is an important consideration, in terms of being able to provide that equity of access, even though the building itself on that front is not ADA accessible. I think having that utility and being able to provide that is an important consideration as well. That it's a understanding outcome to realizing, as the project has developed. So I hope it's not too much of a hardship for the applicant to consider adding a sidewalk. It seems like it's not a hardship from a project cost perspective, but I hope that's part of the consideration as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Other questions and comments from the commission? Not seeing any. Would someone like to make a motion? Would someone like to make a motion? I think we do need to continue to move this forward. So could someone please make a motion?
I move we approve as presented with the addition of the sidewalk.
So clarification on your condition, is it a condition that they consider adding is it a condition to add the sidewalk or consideration to add the
No, I
sidewalk?
guess that's a condition. I'm not sure if there's a other condition regarding the cast stone.
The condition would be to submit the final manufacturers and color lines of all the materials.
Yes.
The brick and cast stone, they did submit it. I apologize for the windows.
Yes, for the cast stone.
Any other considerations related to the cast stone at the towers, or are you keeping to those two?
Why don't we have a consideration that they look at a brick for the towers instead of the cast stone?
Okay, thank you. So we have two conditions of submitting the final materials, considering or adding the sidewalk for accessibility, and consideration to review or to change the cast stone towers to brick. Does that summarize your motion, Ms. Anderson?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Trosick, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce results.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Clicchia, Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Assistant Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing your project progress.
Thank you very
for all
much.
the support. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Musson, too, for your letter of support for that centers project on the Detroit. Trying to keep a building in a historic district is always important. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll now move on to our concept plan reviews. We have one, sorry, I have it sort of zoomed in. It is located at 9113 Parmalee Avenue, gym addition demolition. We'd like to welcome the applicant to unmute your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project.
Madam Chair, just a point of order. There are two projects actually this is the renovation of the existing school building and the demolition of the gym addition.
Thank you for clarifying that. So we'll take two votes. Or no, I'm sorry, we're not voting because it's a concept plan review. Sorry. Continue on.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rob Donaldson, I'm a project manager with Moody Dome. I'm joined by Jessica Sheldon with Beacon. Jessica, if you want to introduce yourself.
Everybody.
Okay. So we'll go and just jump into this. For those members of the committee who were able to go and visit us on site, we appreciate your time. To go and give a little bit of history about this building. This was originally constructed in 1915 in the Glenville neighborhood, just off of Superior, adjacent to the Cultural Gardens. With the success of this building, there were two additions built onto the north side, one in 1918 and one in 1921. And with that, what we have in front of us today, we're going to talk a bit more about the gymnasium, but the gymnasium was actually added on in 1952. So as we go through these slides, we'll talk a little bit more about the project. The building has sat idle since 2011, and over that time, CMSD has put out a request for development proposals from developers, and one of which was Beacon Communities, who came forward, expressed interest in this property, and definitely saw the value that is Empire School. So as you can see on the map here, this is where we're looking at. Actually, I misspoke. It's actually south of St. Clair, adjacent to the Cultural Gardens. So great site, great accessibility to a lot of the things with the lakefront, but also really tied into the community. So next slide. And you can see that it is a neighborhood school. It was founded as a neighborhood school. It has always been a neighborhood school. Through the years, it has evolved. Most recently, it was used as Computech at Empire School, and like I said, 2011. And since then, it's sat idle. So we did go through this building in 2021. At that time, there has been water intrusion. There's been several issues with the building. The first floor is very, very damp. Of course, we have mold, we have asbestos, all those things that come with a building of this age, but also with the detriment. There's a lot of great influence within this building, within this neighborhood. So everything like we've spoken about with the cultural centers, great institutions. But what we're looking at here is that, once again, this is one of those historic Cleveland neighborhoods, very densely packed with the traditional housing that we're accustomed to. Next slide, please. So just looking at some of the institutions that were around this neighborhood, we did take stock of that. We reached out to the community. There's actually been two community engagement meetings. First one was done on February 10th, 2022. At the time, the community, we proposed that it would be multifamily. From that, the community did not the community challenged us to come out of this this process and think about it a little bit differently. So if you were to go to the next slide. We actually, pardon me, we actually came back and in December 7th of 2022, we actually proposed that this would be considered as senior housing. So the senior focused housing, this actually, Jessica is more than happy to go and speak about any considerations or concerns about the senior focused housing, but there's a certain age limit of what you have to be to actually be an occupant of this building. So that way we start to at least look at who's going to be on site, and some of the concerns about who will be coming and going on the site from the community, we did respond to. Since then, we did meet with design reviews, so I believe that Jessica Beam is able to go and speak to that a little bit more. But what you see here in front of you, these are buildings, these are pictures of the buildings, pardon me. So going from the top left, that is the overall site. What we're going to talk about a little bit further on here is that due east of the building, that block that kind of breaks off the symmetry and creates asymmetry, that is actually the gymnasium addition that was done in 1952. It is not historic to the building itself. The top center, that is actually one of the alcoves on the north facing. So to the right of that picture there, you can actually see the auditorium space. It's a two-story space. It meets at the lower level and then comes up and creates a great volume. And above that, there's a cafeteria space that used to have light, lots of natural light into it. The right picture at top right, that is the gymnasium itself. So you can see there's a high bay and a low bay. So the high bay, it was conducive for a basketball court. And then the bottom side of that is actually for the supporting infrastructure. So everything from lockers, et cetera. And you can see that picture down on the bottom right as well. So definitely a building that is of 1952's era. It is not conducive to the style of the building itself. And one of the things that you can see there, just that little sliver canopy as it hits the building, that's actually covering up one of the original entrances. So one side of the building used to be designated for girls, the other side for boys. So that's been kind of absorbed by the mass that is the gymnasium itself. The bottom center picture, that is the library kindergarten space. So a great space there that we're excited about opening up, getting a lot of natural light into that building. A lot of intricate stonework that is around that window opening that we're excited to see and investigate a little bit more. And then going on to the west side of the building, that's actually a parking surface that abuts one of the residential properties. We're looking at opportunities to actually soften the building a little bit more, make it a better neighbor within this community. So lots of great opportunities here as we start to look at this building. Next slide. But key here is we are within a neighborhood. We have people that live across the street. Members that were at design review were actually of the neighborhood, so we got to hear a lot of great comments. We've had great comments as well with the community members. And what we want to do is that this has such a rich history, rich vibe, that we actually want to make sure that as we bring Empire back online, that we actually are cognizant and aware of our neighbors to the north, south, west, and east of us. So trying to blend all those great pieces together. Next slide. So the existing site that we're looking at now, just going once again from the east to the west. So East 93rd Street is a major thoroughfare. It's basically how you connect to the north and the south. So that actually connects to St. Clair to the north. And then Parmalee and Empire actually border either side of this project. The project formerly fronts Parmalee, so the front door used to be on Parmalee, and those are the historic stairs. And then on the backside towards Empire, those tend to be more of the ancillary spaces, a lot of the loading dock areas, some of the things that actually support the building. Those are what were in place. On the east side of this proposal, you can see that there's a lot of dashed lines. What that is we're looking at the gymnasium structure itself. Like I said, once again, it creates asymmetry on the site itself. Definitely, you have a lot of hardscape. You have a lot of a built environment on this site. So one of the things we're trying to do is bring this building back to its original form from the 1921s era, and then actually look at opportunities to try to bring the site to be a little bit more soft within the community itself. Next slide, please. The gymnasium, we were able to get in there in 2021, look at it. Unfortunately, we're not able to get access out there most recently when members of this committee visited. We apologize for that. We'll continue to work with CMSD to get some access in there. But some of the things that we just want to bring attention to is that there is glazed block within this building. And with that, they actually embedded the steel within the block. The walls are moving, the steel is moving. So with that, there's several lintel failures, lots of things that are starting to get concerning with this building as we start to look at it more and more. There was a proposal from this group that we could possibly look at salvaging some of the sandstone as we start to take the building down. We're definitely going to look at that. And then once abatement is done, we will take inventory of what is within the gymnasium. I think there was recommendations for the committee to consider everything from bleachers to backboards, et cetera, to see how we could actually at least salvage part of that, would potentially use it for design interventions within the building. And those are things we're going to look at here. Other things we do want to look at is that we're going to be doing some exploratory investigations to the bottom image that is actually just to the left of the text, and then the one that's subsequent to that. A lot of interface with the addition as it hits the brick. We're not sure how much brick has been damaged. So we're going to do some exploratory investigations to see what the nature of that brick is, what we can do to actually bring it back online. But ultimately, we want to restore the structure to its original form. Next slide, please. For the site, we're still looking at our parking strategies. This is what we have presented to design review. We're still working with Beacon to just go ahead and make sure that we're in alignment with the requirements of the city. So lots of ongoing conversations. And then out of this meeting, our next steps are we are going to be looking to see what trees can be preserved with a city approved arborist. We will be reaching out to PetBot, so that's on our checklist to do. And then what you're looking at here in terms of the site plan, just once again, working from the east, from West 93rd all the way to the west. Creating a nice buffer space. There's recommendations for that to be preserved, something for the community to have as an asset. There's a lot of, like we said, not a lot of green space, so providing that opportunity. There was a recommendation to consider public art, so we're continuing to work on that. The parking has been reduced. This is a senior-focused housing renovation. So with that, the requirements for the zoning code are definitely less than what you would have. So it's not a one-to-one bed scenario. So we're still looking at that for the recommendations of design review and conversations with the city. But ultimately what we do is we would create a new entryway. So controlled access point into the building with a ramp that actually goes down to the first floor. The first floor is being about 4 feet below grade. We talked about Empire being the back service side. So one of the things we will preserve is we're coded note 2 is that's actually the old coal vault and chutes that have been since abandoned. So we will taking those out. We will be utilizing that for the delivery points. All trash recycling will be stored within the building itself. So once we have routine refuge removal, those will come outside the doors, and that will only be where we use for potential residents to move in and out of the building. So that'll be a common point. The other bullet point there, number 3, you can see that actually we're looking at that to be a residence terrace area. So using that to at least give an amenity space for people. We're still considering code note number 4, that asphalt that goes up against the neighbors. We're trying to be a good neighbor here. So definitely looking at opportunities where we can create more green space, create a buffer for the building to go ahead and breathe. We're going to begin working with a landscape architect and as well as our civil engineer to see what we can do with in terms of on-site retention, but also trying to create a nice buffer on that side. So with this is just our starting point. We know there's a lot of work yet to do. We're excited about this in terms of site and definitely looking forward to opportunities. Next slide. The floor plans themselves, we typically have 1-bedroom units throughout the entire building. The common space being the auditorium. We're looking at opportunities for that to either be a community space or maybe even an exercise facility for occupants of this building. Common services within the building are going to be located either underneath the libraries where you don't get a lot of natural light, so making sure we provide the natural light to where occupants will be. And then also you can see what we talked about where the vestibules, laundry, et cetera, where those building components are. That is actually direct correlation with the service yard that will be off the side. So once again, trying to bring all those services back in. We are going to be going for National Green Building Standard on this project. So everything that we're going to be looking at in conjunction with your review, we're looking at all the penetrations going to the roof, not trying to create any sort of obstruction. So as you look at laundry, you look at the unit types, we're definitely taking a lot of that consideration. The one major intervention here that you can see, 2 things that we have highlighted in red is the new ramp. So there is a door there. We're going to be bringing it back online, but definitely providing it to access. A very similar precedent that we have looked at is how Famicos does their entrance. So we would do something of that kind. And additionally, the elevator that is there is no longer viable. The loading dock that actually went up to that elevator has since deteriorated. It does not go the full height of the building. So the very simple intervention there is it is tucked around that corner of the building, providing 2 new elevators with that going full height and then actually getting this redundancy to the building. So that would be our approach there in terms of intervention. Next slide. Second floor, once again, is very similar. So you're going to see pretty much the same type of plan being brought up. Just some nuances of the plans. Once again, we're looking at probably the kindergarten library space. That'll be something we would play around with that suite. The corridor is historic. The stairs that you see that are on the left and right, as well as at the bottom, those are historic. Those will all be preserved in kind. We're also trying to work to preserve any sort of fire treatments or rating requirements that we have to meet. Next slide, please. And last but not least, the 3rd floor. So the building recedes back in on the south. So what you can see there is that the kindergarten library space actually is just down below. So you have a roof that's on top of that. And then the overbuild for the cafeteria that is a few steps up just to accommodate for the height of the auditorium. So things we're looking at there. Next slide. In terms of the elevations themselves, probably the one big thing that we're looking at here is what's going to happen when we take off that gymnasium. We think there's lots of great opportunity there. Our team is starting to actually document and study all of the stone articulation that is on this building, as well as brickwork. There's some tile insets that we're looking at. So as we start to go through this process, definitely the elevations will be in line with what you see there on site. Tuck pointing will be done. The building will be restored. We're having in-depth conversations about the windows. We definitely want to preserve what was actually put in place, but also need to make sure that we adhere to sort of energy requirements, but also looking as we start to approach National Green Building Standards, what we need to do for ventilation. This entry that you see number 2, that is actually one of the historic entries. Once again, we got to get in there. We have to see what's going on. So there'll be some selective demo to see what the stonework looks like and bring that back on. So whether or not it has the letters above it for a girls or boys entrance, we'll restore that. And of course, then number 1, that's actually the side that faces the neighbors. So that's where that massive piece of asphalt parking is, bringing that back online, just trying to restore it. Next slide. The north elevation, this faces Parmalee, so this will be pretty much cleaned up. The center mass there, as you see bumping up, that is the auditorium with the cafe.
Looks like he disappeared. Oh, there it is.
Is that my cue to wrap it up? Okay. Next slide. And then this is the Empire elevation. Once again, we're really excited about this. Great ornamentation on that centerpiece that's celebrated with the building. Definitely want to bring that back online. We're studying everything as best as we can. And what you see there is key is at the right side of the building where you have the gymnasium that comes off, trying to get this building back to be what it was in 1921. I think the other slides we have in this deck are just the corners that go in and out. So there's some articulation. You can see like a number 4, there's actually, we think that is the bell tower. We're trying to gain access to that point to see what is actually in there, see how it's been preserved. We have to do in terms of upkeep, maintenance. But once again, there's just a lot of great opportunities here that we're very excited about.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. We appreciate the detail. We'll begin with Design Review Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Magnolia Wade Park East Boulevard Design Review Committee, which discussed the need for rezoning, the community and council support, the positive impact in the neighborhood. They also focused on making sure the lighting and landscaping is important for an enjoyable space for the tenants as well as the community, and did have some questions regarding the impacts to the historic structure and that accessible entrance that's planned, and did have a very extensive conversation regarding the parking available for tenants and guests.
All right, thank you for that. Staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff is in support of the project in general, both the renovation and demolition. There are some questions related to the landscaping, possibly a salvage plan, but overall, it appears that the project is going to be in keeping with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, so we're in support.
Excellent, thank you. We'll then open up the floor for commission for questions and comments. I'll start us off. I think this is a beautiful building, and I appreciate the care that you're trying to take, to really renovate this building. I do not feel that the gym is a contributing factor to or contributing structure to the overall facility. So I am in support of the project and the demolition. I don't have any other comments related to the design that go beyond what staff and local committee have given you. Other feedback from the commission? Ms. Anderson?
I totally agree with your comments. I'm so happy to see somebody breathing new life into this beautiful structure. And I agree that the demolition of the gym is not going to negatively impact. In fact, I think it'll be a very positive move. So I really applaud what you're doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions and comments from the commission? Not seeing any. Does the applicant feel like you've received enough feedback from the commission to continue on with the development of your project?
Yes, we appreciate the comments offered today.
All right, thank you. We look forward to seeing you come back with the final presentation.
Thank you.
That concludes our concept plan reviews. We'll move on to the National Register of Historic Places nominations. Mr. Musson, will you be leading this, or Mr. Brunges?
Madam Chair, we actually have Trudy Andruski from Community Development. She's heading up the CMSD RFP process for the city. So she was going to walk us through the nomination for Empire School.
Excellent.
Hi, everybody. My name is Trudy Andruski. I'm with the Department of Community Development. Rob in his presentation spoke a little bit to how we got here, but if I can just have 1 minute to kind of elaborate. In 2021, the City of Cleveland partnered with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District to create an opportunity to redevelop some of the district's surplus school sites. So there were about 19 sites in that opportunity. Several of them were landmark buildings, and we've been been elated to identify developers who have been interested in some of these sites, and Beacon in particular has just been a pleasure to work with. I do have a couple paragraphs just summarizing the National Register nomination, but I do see that Linda, who's the historic consultant that prepared the nomination, is on the call. So if Linda, you want to present something very brief, otherwise I'm happy to walk through the very brief summary that we have prepared.
No, if there's anything I think I need to add after you talk, I will, but I'm sure you got it.
Okay, thank you, Linda. So just quickly, the Empire Junior High School is being nominated for the National Register of Historic Places under criterion C in the category of architecture. Empire functioned as a public school for nearly a century before closing its doors in 2011. It stands as a superb and rare extant example of the work of prolific school architect Walter Roy McCormick. Empire is locally significant as a prime example of Jacobean, I always stumble over that, revival style applied to a school building. At the time of its construction in 1915, Cleveland's public schools were among the most innovative in the country. Under the initial leadership of Frank Seymour Barnum and then his successor, Walter McCormick, both acted as the lead architect for the School Board of Education, and during that time, 140 school buildings were constructed between 1895 and 1925. McCormick drew national attention for his progressive school designs in the early 20th century, at the time when Cleveland was growing to be one of the nation's largest cities. Unfortunately, we've lost many of McCormick's buildings, so Empire stands as a rare intact example of a school design from this era. The Jacobean style employed was not one often used by McCormick, but Empire represents the style's popularity in early 20th century school design. Empire maintains its original location and setting. The design remains largely intact, and the removal of the 1952 gym addition will only reinforce the original design. The school also maintains a high level of original materials and workmanship, as well as its feeling and association. And that concludes kind of the summary, but happy to answer any questions or provide more context if helpful. And sorry for stumbling over the architectural style that I always stumble over.
It is a mouthful, so I'd probably do the same. So thank you for the presentation. We will open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. I guess I'll start us off. I think we said it in the last review. I think this is a wonderful facility. I think it is a great example of this architectural style, and appreciate that it's been maintained for this long, and am in full support of the nomination to allow it to continue to be maintained to the standards it has and could be. Other feedback from the commission? I realize I'm scroll down. Not seeing any. Would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Dryer?
I'll make the motion to nominate it for the National Register. And I have a slight question: is the swimming pool still there?
Well, since there a motion, we'll finish that, and then we can get to your question in the questions portion. Just for clarification, because I know I always state it incorrectly, it's a continuation of the nomination. Is that correct, Mr. Brunges or Mr. Musson?
The commission would be in support of the listing of the building on the National Register of the Historic Places.
You're in support of the nomination.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second our support.
Great. Any further discussion? Would someone like to answer Mr. Dryer's question about the pool?
This is Linda from Heritage. I can do that. So the 1921 plans that were shown at the beginning there, that was never fully realized. The swimming pool was called for being constructed in the basement, but that was actually, as far as I know, not constructed. So that was just kind of the dream plan for Empire School.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay. Mr. Musson, please call roll and announce the results.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
let's see, Assistant Director Fields,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trout.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Excellent. We'll move on to administrative reports.
Madam Chair, to the Commission, we'll be scheduling a site visit for 3211 Dennison Avenue sometime during the week of March 13th, as the city will be requesting the demolition of this building that contributes to both the Brooklyn Center Landmark District and the National Register listed Brooklyn Center Historic District. So there'll be more to come on that. Otherwise, no other reports.
Excellent. No meeting minutes to approve today, but we will move I think that is the end of our agenda here. Yep. So then, unless there's something else that someone has, we will adjourn today's meeting. All right. Well then, thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.